Cool. Okay. Grow a Pair in episode number 2. Andrew Birch or Drew Birch or Bustarut.today, not Bust a Nut.
Bustarut. That's the plan. I'm glad you
It's-
caught it. Not everyone does.
Not everyone gets it. Dude. I saw the very first video. I was like, does that say Bust a Nut? And my eyes were a bit short, so normally I wear glasses, or I wasn't. And I was like, well, hold on. What's this guy talking about here? And then it's like, hey man, if your your ancestors or your God is looking down on you, you know, what's he gonna think? Or you know, it's what a message. Like it's such a tough one to talk about. It's like, you know, when you start out, I don't think you go, all right, I'm gonna impact the world. Jerking off. This is the subject. What took you down that road? Why are you talking about this subject? Like,
I definitely don't want to be the porn guy. I don't want to be that guy.
Sure.
So I've tried to make every effort to not brand myself down into that niche too hard. I want to be the overall performance guy, and so what we have to do to elevate our performance is to cut off what's holding us back. And so pornography just happens to be the biggest, hardest hitting handbrake on most guys at the moment. It's a thing that nobody really wants to address. And so it was the topic I could use to reach the high schoolers.
Right.
They aren't struggling with cocaine or alcoholism.
Yes.
Most of the guys that I actually work with one-on-one in my clientele base are alcoholics and drug addicts. So, you know, porn just happens to be the hardest hitting issue for the youth today. Yeah. And for most guys. And it's just something that we're not talking about. And I'm ready to be the guy that says the uncomfortable things. Yes. I can put myself out there and don't mind. I don't have a massive fear of shame. And so I'm happy to use my experience to help drag other guys out. I'll be the guy that's going to talk about it if I have to be.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I like it. Look, someone has to do it.
Yeah.
I've seen how, and with mates of mine, and with, even pastors of churches and people that you think are above this kind of thing, how the wrong woman or some porn or cheating or just letting yourself get distracted and just you're down a path that you kind of can't get back from. What are those? Like in terms of, we can talk about porn for a bit and then we can move on to the rest. But like, what are the? For the guy that's sitting there and he's watching a video every night to get to bed, you know, and sleep, because for some oaks they can't switch themselves off, and that's a great way to just okay, cool, let's switch it off. Where's the negatives here?
So I think the first negative that you hit on was the fact that it's everywhere. And if we saw heroin like we see porn, we would think there was an epidemic going on. Yeah. There'd be scenes. We're getting wired at every turn. The movies you're watching, the series you're watching, the girls on TikTok twerking it out, right? They're chasing that same energy, and so we're getting super wired up. And then we're not actually having,
because TikTok knows I'm 40. And it doesn't give me that.
Well, the algorithm shows you what you spend time on. So you're obviously just
loads of Jordan Peterson.
There we go.
Loads of Ben Shapiro.
Your focus is in the right
Gary
place.
Vaynerchuk.
There you go. So I think that's the first big negative, is a massive drop in actual sex.
Right.
There's been a huge amount of studies dating back to 2010 in Japan. Loads of guys just not interested in pursuing women at all anymore. Yeah. And I think that porn has got a massive correlation to that, because it's your let off, right? Yeah. You don't have to risk rejection or the responsibility of a long-term relationship. You can just go back to your room and whack one out. Yes. And then forget about it for another day. Yes. Before you do the same thing. And then the next part of that negative is the next thing you mentioned, is that it is that let off, the best way to fall asleep, right? And what's happening there is essentially a natural release of opiates. And so you're essentially giving yourself a high. The problem being that because you're hitting that high, you're raising the threshold of opiates that you would need in normal everyday interaction. And so, for example, it's a reward system, right? Yeah. So an example of reward would be if I was to be in conversation with you and shake your hand, look you in the eyes, I would have a small amount of opiate release, and that would help me to be calm. That would give me my confidence.
This is that dopamine hit.
This is the opiate hit, opiate hit, right? This is the reward. This is the that puts you to sleep. Yeah. And so that keeps you confident. Okay, and so what's the most important part of our social activity would be procreation, would be pair bonding. And so when you're having sex, you're getting a massive hit of opiate. And so your brain's saying, well done, my boy, you did sex. Except you didn't.
Yeah.
You were whacking off in your room like a loser.
So you're connecting with your iPhone X on a emotional level and not a person.
Exactly. And so because you're getting these massive spikes of opiates every night, you're again having normal social interaction and not hitting the minimum thresholds that you need. And so you think you're confident. You think this is just you because you've been doing it for so long, and yet your confidence is actually shot. So that's the next big massive negative. Other than, like you mentioned, the dopamine, that's your instigator, that's your reward chemical. That's what gets you to do what you have to do in your days.
Yes.
And now suddenly that's not enough to get you to work out, to get you to study, to get you to be focused, right? And so it's a double whammy of drugs that you're actually hitting. We sit here and we judge the alcoholic, we judge the other addict from our high horses, never considering that we are junkies when we're porn addicts, and it hits just as hard.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I think like alcoholism and those kinds of things are slightly more public. It's like the porn and sexual type stuff is very hidden and very it's not as public. So you can stand on your high horse and be like, oh, come on, look at you. When back in the day you're a complete train wreck. Yeah. And geez, okay.
100%.
I like it. Okay, so you mentioned working out. One of the first, I think it was the fourth video that I saw of you with your phone and you're running somewhere and you're like, yo, I'm out with my mates, we're doing a casual 22k run. What show of strength? And I looked at myself and I was like, oh damn, and I'm like 20 kilo heavier than I should be, and I couldn't run to the gate. What the hell are you doing? No, I get it, but what's the story behind show of strength? I've seen 2-3 videos, I think now, where some youngsters were with you and a couple of older guys as well. What's the thing?
One of my biggest turnaround points was, I can't remember the year, but it was the year that the first Goggins Challenge happened.
Right.
I didn't think I was fit enough for that, and so I decided, I hadn't run the whole year. I had done 2 runs of 7 kilometers between the 1st of Jan and the 1st of June. And then on the 1st of June to the end of the month, so every single day of the month, I ran 10 kilometers a day. And it was something that was hard, that no one thought I could do. I said to my parents, I'm going to do this thing, and they were like, okay. And it would happen regardless. So I was driving for 8 hours a day. I would get home, put my headlights on, and do the same loop.
Yeah. And
so that was my first challenge to myself, to see what I could do, and to show myself where I was in terms of my internal strength.
Yeah.
And so it's built from there. Subsequently, we host an event now every year called Goggins Challenge, which is obviously named by Goggins, and that's 4 miles before hours for the 48 hours. That's 12 laps. So it's about 77 kilometers in total.
48 hours for 2 days.
And so you run again every 4 hours. Actually very manageable to anybody that can run a 10K. They'd be able to do it.
Right.
Scales up in terms of difficulty, because the faster you, or the fitter you are, the faster you run it.
Okay.
And then the slower you are, the longer it takes you to run it.
What is 4 miles in
6.3 Ks?
6.3 Ks. Okay.
So that's kind of where the concept comes from. The Japanese call it a misagi. It's a super hard challenge that you do every now and again, that when life gets hard, which it inevitably does, you get to look back on and say, I did that hard thing, therefore I can do this hard thing.
Okay.
Right? So it's just building that mental fortitude. It's stacking wins in the mirror. Yeah. It's like Alex Hormozi says, Chris Williams quoted him on it quite recently, and it went really viral, was saying, you don't get confident by saying affirmations in the mirror. You get confident by being able to look in the mirror and having a history of winning.
Yes. Right.
It's that historical track record of I take W's that gets you to back yourself and to keep taking the W's. Yes. And then Peterson talks about
the lobsters.
The lobsters, right? Yeah. You win more. You lose more. And so what we're trying to do with that is essentially just look for the win.
Yes.
And so no one had trained. It's a bunch of high school lads. Yeah. And one of the guys from the club had just finished the 100 Club Challenge. And he said, boys, show of strength this Saturday. We had a week's time. No one had run. I think I'd run like maybe twice the rest of the year. Yeah. And so it was like, cool, we're going to go do 22 Ks. And none of the guys had done more than 10. Yeah. And everyone got it done. And then you get to say, I got it done. And you get to have that on your track record, right? Yeah. So that's kind of the concept behind that.
That's cool. Like you say, finding those W's. Because I look at some of the youngsters, and I've got a passion for. Well, it's going to sound so wrong, but I've got a passion to help grow young guys.
Yeah, to be serious, that.
Like, whoa. Okay, that's going to get soundbited somewhere. And it's like, no, not quite. But sort of that teenage through to 22, like 14 through 22. Yeah. This is where the youngsters
Sure.
I don't care where it is in the world. This is where they get hammered, especially the boys.
100%.
The girls as well, but look, that you can't deal with as a guy. You've got to have girls in your life to be able to deal with that. You know, if they are in your life. But the young guys, they need those wins because they're being hammered. And South Africa, flipping hell, every day, twice a day, we're getting hammered by Eskom. Never mind, you know, and that's for the kids, just school-wise. What a nightmare, you know.
School-wise, and then every other angle as well. They're getting taken out before they even get a chance to become the men that they need to be.
Yeah.
And they are the most important generation that we have, right? They're the next generation of fighting age males in 5 to 10 years, and they do set their tone early on, right? The winners start winning early and keep winning, and maybe they catch a hiccup as they come out of high school and lose that external locus of control.
But first year of college or uni or whatever.
There we go. But the winners generally keep winning, right? And if they get taken out early, if they get castrated, cut off at the knees, they never get to become these effective men that we need them to be the pillars of protection and provision within the family unit. And so I think there's a very relevant tangent on that, is that Andrew Tate gets taken out.
Yes.
Okay. I'm not saying that I worship the guy. Okay. He has his flaws like any other man does.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's being taken out for the reasons that he's supposed to be being taken out for.
100% agree. Yeah.
I think he's being taken out because for the first time, a man has stood up and has convinced the youth, has stirred up the hearts of the next generation of fighting age males that the best thing you can be doing is not being a degenerate.
Yes.
And when I was in high school, we didn't have that.
Yes.
I saw the internet for the first time, and it was Project X.
Yeah.
It was girls and drugs and the party, and that's all we saw out there. And so we acclimatized to that. We became like that.
Yeah.
And now you have these guys standing up and saying, lads, buckle up, tighten up, dial in, get focused, get dangerous, get effective, make your cash.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
be
make
wholesome.
cash, do push-ups, run. Yeah.
Exactly that. And so I think that the youth are being attacked, and they are the most important generation that we should be contending for. And so that's why we've got the campaign going. The next 2 years, we want to get into every school in the country, Uncut Your Campus campaign. And that's all I want to do, is just speak to the lads and get them dialed in. And the response has been insane. There is a Tinder dry setup in high schools right now. The guys are so ready for it. You hit this little spark, and within hours, the guys are all on WhatsApp groups, all encouraging each other, all holding each other accountable, getting dialed in. The guys, I go there to talk about porn. The guys stop vaping, they start gymming, they start studying harder. It is amazing to see what's happening with the guys, and they are so ready for it. Yeah, the guys are awake and charged. They're just waiting for someone to give them actionable steps.
Like a little bit of leadership.
There we go.
Yeah. So you mentioned accountability.
Yeah. And
this is a subject that is probably even more contentious than even porn. You're like, dude, who the hell are you to tell me? You know, like, I am my own oak, blah, blah, blah. I'll lead you, China. You know, how do you frame accountability with the guys that you talk to? What's your idea around it?
So what I started off with was I first had to be very open and very vulnerable, and I have to make an effort to stay open and vulnerable. And so I don't hide my lifestyle decisions. I enjoy a cigar, and we can talk about nicotine in a bit, but when I'm in a celebratory spirit, I will smoke a cigar and I will tell you, right? Because I need you to know that I'm authentic.
Yes.
And so that's what I had to do for the last 4 or 5 years. I went from being the joller, right, and lost almost half of my friends on Instagram because I came out to then become the 5 a.m. wake up, don't watch porn, talk to me about this. This is what I've been going through. Do you want to talk to me about this? Yeah. And started to share what I was doing, and so that the general public could keep me accountable initially. And then I think once guys started to work out that was authentic, they would come and say to me, hey, you're obviously doing something differently. What are you doing? And now we're on, we have these private groups, and I think there are something like 350 guys on WhatsApp groups now, keeping each other accountable from the 100 Club program, from the Bustarut.today program, from the high schools we visited. And then obviously we have the closer, tighter-knit community that we have on Telegram. And we've got a great dev who's coded our software, so the guys have to report in, they have to check in with the guys on doing their push-ups, on keeping clean. And then you just encourage each other, right? You keep each other going. And I stay on that, right? They keep me as accountable as I keep them. And so, you find your community of guys that are going to go forward, because not everyone's going to. So you find the guys that are going to go forward, and then you say to each other, come, we move. And so it's a circle of trust, right? It's a circle of accountability. You're not accountable to me without me having to be accountable to you as well. Yeah. So I think it's a back and forth. Yeah. And it's taken a little bit of time to build that trust.
I found, I mean, in the past, I've been involved with like youth groups and so like a younger group of guys that are also trying to keep themselves accountable, getting through school, getting fit, all of that. And you can see it where some guy walks in and he's like, right, I'm going to sort your guys' lives out. I'll tell you how it's going to work. And they're all looking, it's just like, get stuff.
Yeah.
And then you walk in and you have a chat to them and be real and be like, actually, this is where I've fallen. This is where I've suffered. Yeah. Here's my story. And then, sometimes you have to be cautious what you tell, say the younger guys in the group versus the older guys. But and then they look at you a bit different. Oh, hold on, this guy's not just trying to, poke on whatever.
100%. So I've tried to be, and I think like you said, I think that's what's made the difference. Is when I arrive to talk, I hit hard with what I'm saying. I'm very abrasive in terms of the language that I use. And I will talk to the 14-year-old and the 18-year-old the same, because I find that the young guys, I mean, I was 9 when I watched porn for the first time. I was in hostel, and so the older guys, it trickles down.
Hostel is a,
you know what I mean? And so we find that the guys are way younger than we thought they should be doing the things that we think they should be doing, right? 14-year-olds vape. Like it's not weird for them anymore. So I've had to come in and almost hold them as equal in terms of our world, in terms of where we see the world on a societal standard, because the 14-year-olds are receiving the same information online as what we are.
Right.
They're not seeing different information anymore.
Yeah.
We're all in the same field, right? There's no closed circles of, this is adult talk and this is youth talk. The youth have heard it all. They're doing it all. Yeah. And so I've approached them from saying, hey guys, I'm here, I've been here, and I've had the consequences. So let me just try and help you out. I'm not trying to be dad. I'm just trying to tell you that I messed up. I have been so blessed to avoid some really permanent consequences. And you don't have to. If I can get you to dodge my 5-year slump, right? Because I jumped out of high school, had been told this story by some other old guy who I didn't trust. I didn't realize there was no Tinder ready to ignite. I wasn't ready to hear it. And so I jumped out of high school, didn't have my external locus of control, and was a pot smoking, masturbating monkey within the end of the year, right? And so I was caught in that trap for a good 4 or 5 years, and I have lost potential trajectory. And I look at the guys that never had that slump, that stayed focused, that stayed high level, still had a little bit of fun, but stayed high level with a little bit of a dip, as opposed to me staying low level the whole day, every now and again having to study for a test, which I failed a couple of times. I wish that I had a bit of a focus then. My trajectory would be way different. And I understand that I needed to experience and do what I did to be what I'm doing now. But, maybe I was meant to do more. And I might never be that now. And it was that 4 to 5 years. So if I can get the guys to come out of high school and not wait for the end varsity to kind of click onto the fact that I need to take life seriously, why are there no other 25 to 30-year-olds still doing what I'm doing right now? Right? Why has everyone stopped there? It's not actually worth it. Damn it, if only I'd figured this out at 16. I could have been way further ahead right now. That's 10 years of my life. If you look at it percentage-wise, it's a big chunk of change. When you're your most efficient, when you have your most energy, and the guys are just getting caught up in these traps that they're not really considering. It just looks like fun. We don't consider the consequence at that stage. But
I turned 40 a little while back, and it's such a wake-up on, so like, okay, cool, I'm 40. What have I achieved? What have you done? But the 20s, and I look back at my say 18 to 30, and I go, geez, I had the energy. I used to be able to go to bed at 2 a.m, wake up at 5, operate, and I did to a point. But then I took all my money and blew it. So earned great cash, and then blew it on sushi and stupid, like going to a fancy restaurant in Joburg and being seen and having that big steak, and whatever else. It's like lifestyle too early, and that kind of thing. Now you spoke about Andrew Tate, and I agree with you in terms of, I think he's being hammered for the wrong thing, and I don't know, maybe if it's easier for them to point the finger at like something that seems or is bad, but he hasn't done. But it's easy to go, well, look at the guy. He's got 27 supercars. Of course he's preying on chicks, but that kind of lifestyle is being portrayed absolutely everywhere. And are the youngsters? Are they all aiming for that? Do they think that's real life? Like from the guys that you're talking to, like do they come in fresh and go, that's real life and that's what I should be getting, or not.
I had a conversation with a guy this weekend, and good looking, tall, smart guy, and he was saying exactly that, and I had to say to him, that's still hedonism. You're pursuing pleasure, but to what end? Yes. And I think you get caught up in that trap if you don't have purpose. You don't have a higher purpose. You think that your highest purpose is to yourself, which is a very dangerous thing to say. Do as thou will. I think that's Aleister Crowley. That's satanic, for lack of a better word for it. To put yourself up as your highest goal is very, very dangerous. We were meant for a purpose, but we are warriors in a war.
Yes.
And so there's higher purpose to this. Bustarut is the first step in a big plan. We first need to get the guys unaddicted and dialed in and effective, so they can be ready to do what they need to do and be who they need to be. Because there is a bigger fight going on than the fight for self. Don't get me wrong, I would love to drive a supercar and have my private jet, and I hope that I get it one day. I'm not going to not try and get it, but I'm first going to be able to fight and have a lot of guns and be ready for anything else that might happen in my life. It is not the end goal. It is simply a nice to have along the way, as long as we're also being effective towards the mission that we're actually called towards. Because as men, we are called to a purpose. That purpose is our work in whatever sphere that we're in. And we were meant to try and become as powerful as we can be in whatever sphere we're in. And so these things just happen to hold us back, and that's why we're attacking this first. But there is a step 2 to this plan. We are going to get there. We just first have to get the guys dialed in and awake to that reality.
Do you feel like there's a strategized attack against that kind of
100%.
That kind of lifestyle, or being just, I mean, I know toxic masculinity gets thrown out a lot, but people don't talk just about masculinity. It's a simple thing of we're in a room here. If there was a girl sitting over here, some guy busts in, you and me jump on the guy.
100%.
We don't look at the girl and go, sorry, you're equal. You take him, you think there's a bit of a thing, or how do we combat that?
I think the phrase toxic masculinity is very, very ineffective in describing the real issue. I think it does the opposite. What we're calling toxic masculinity is in fact a lack of masculinity. The real strong, powerful, dialed in, properly framed man is a protector and is a provider. He presides over the situation, but he is not manipulative and condescending and controlling and hurtful and pushy. It doesn't have to be. Right? And so we find that a lack of masculinity is what we're framing as toxic masculinity. If masculinity was toxic, then the homes that had fathers would be worse off. But it's the single mother homes that we're finding are the worst off. Right? And so that obviously can't be the issue. And then we have to say, and like you said, is there a planned attack on men? And I think the obvious answer is definitely yes. The powers that be don't want strong, effective fighting age males to rise up. That's why Tate is so dangerous, because you have young men being focused and being aware of the situation. Then you have trouble. If you can keep them addicted and distracted by sugar and cheap entertainment, by porn and sport, watch those attacks come in, then you're never going to have them competing with you, right? If we can keep our men painting their faces and standing in the Colosseum cheering for the chariot races, right? And I know with the World Cup being on, we're going to catch some flames for that one, right? But we're sitting here talking about sports. I can name all 15 players in my starting lineup, but I can't tell you anything else about what's happening around the world. The BRICS financial system that's busy coming into play, the food shortages that are going on worldwide. I have no understanding of that. I can't do 15 push-ups, but I can tell you about the 15 boka, right? And so we're distracted. We're not dialed in. We're not ready for what's coming, and I think that is with intent. It's the fall of Rome, but with Wi-Fi. That's it. And men think about the Roman Empire a lot.
Dude, yes. I mean, it's so funny. My wife asked me about it the other day. She's like, okay, I've seen this stuff. Now, she watches the TikTok videos on YouTube because she refuses to do TikTok.
Fair enough.
Not going to do it.
I'll watch it 3 weeks later when it gets to YouTube.
Exactly, So I'm normally a week ahead of her. Like a week ahead. So I was waiting for it.
You knew it was coming.
Just keep quiet. I was like, and I literally yesterday, she's like, babe, are you seeing all this stuff about the Roman Empire? I just started laughing. I was like, yep. But she's like, is it real? I'm like, babe, let me show you a video on aqueducts. They do the kilometers, it's like, and this, and the angle. And they did a suction thing where it goes underground and then pops up the other side. And she just looks at me and goes, okay, that's sure. I mean, whatever, and it's, guys, whilst I feel like maybe guys and girls are, let's call them equal, we're different.
Very different.
So we sit on the same level
Same
as
parts.
importance-wise.
Yeah.
I look at my mom and my dad, importance-wise in my life, perfect. That's exactly the same. They've always been, but their role has been so different.
Yeah.
And I mean, my dad played I would never be doing this without my dad.
Yeah.
You know, my dad put that microphone in my hand. My dad showed me how to solder a cable, how to mix on a sound desk or whatever else.
I feel like even saying the term equal is so dangerous in that concept because then you're trying to compare numbers, 1 equal 1.
Sure.
And then you're still saying they're the same.
Yeah.
I would say it's like square does not equal circle.
Yes.
They're just different.
Yes,
they fill a different function. They fit a different hole. You know, when you're a little kid playing with the shapes, you have to put the square in the like they don't fit in the same hole. And society's obviously try to get that to become irrelevant, but you can't stand away from the truth and bringing it back to the Romans. What we're seeing happening today is exactly what happened then. As soon as you have social justice issues like transgender rights and truths being pushed, that is a very specific sign that your empire is about to collapse.
Yes.
Right? And so we have Rome busy burning. We have the same things going down, right? We're in the Colosseum, painted faces, not aware of barbarians at the gate and famine in the streets, of a currency that's completely shot. Yeah. Right? And so we're eating steaks that cost 1,000 rand while there's poverty in the streets, right? We have paintings that the Greeks painted of their chefs. Yes. When your chefs become celebrities, your empire is about to collapse. When your currency has gone to zero, when it's a fiat, in other words, I say it and therefore it is, I believe it to be and therefore it is, your empire is going. That was 1972.
Yeah, when it's coming away from gold and silver. Yeah.
Right? So we've been in the end throes for a while, and so that's actually when it comes down to the crux of it, why I think it's so important for men to be ready. Your empire's about to collapse. Hard times are here and they are coming. It's not going to get easier. We're not going to swing into a better place anytime soon. We need hard men that are ready to lead and to protect and to provide. And then like the Colosseum, we had a mass obsession with sex and with porn. And once again, we are so dialed in and so aware of sex on every screen all the time. It's all we see at every turn. And I think it's just another sign that your empire is going.
Yeah. You see it in the movies. I try for the most part to steer away from that kind of stuff. I mean, try to watch a Roman documentary without the sex, but it's
right.
It's impossible. But like I look at a lot of the movies and whatnot, and then I think the Marvel guys have done it quite interestingly. Like Guardians of the Galaxy had a slightly different tinge to it. There was less of that kind of nonsense. But then you get your famous 70 Shades of Grey or 60, whatever it is. That kind of thing. Like never watched it, can't even tell you the story, but I've seen the impact on people and some stuff on the internet or whatever else. It's almost as dangerous as porn. If you or is it a sort of maybe a gateway?
I think there was a big pickup from women on that, and I'm interested as to how popular it was amongst female readers. Women that didn't generally read books were suddenly reading. And then you're talking about quite a strong control figure that we're supposed to be very anti right now, right?
Yes.
These controlling men are the worst.
And it was so popular. Yeah.
And it's so popular. So it's like, what are you saying versus what are you enjoying? I think is two different things. And I think it popularizes a certain angle on sex that, I can't talk much about it because I haven't watched the movie, I haven't read the book. Maybe dangerous. Unfortunately, can't do too much of it.
Yes. I'm educated. The book was damping up, and I know. What are we talking about?
Fair enough.
Yeah. Okay. Geez, yeah. But I mean, life. You say life is tough. I mean, it should be. I don't know. Like I look at myself and I go, okay, cool. I've had a nice run. I've had high times and low times, but I think I've only grown through the tough. Are we? 100%. Like, are you building some big crucible and throwing a bunch of young guys into it and going, okay, like 22K run up a hill or whatever it is? I mean, like I'd die. Well, maybe not die, but
you'd make it.
I'd make it. I wouldn't be happy the next day. Yeah.
You'd make it. It might take you an extra half hour, but you would make it. And then at the end of it, you'd have a cookie in the cookie jar, as David Goggins likes to put it.
Yes.
Right. I did something hard. I volunteered to do something hard. Yes. And now I've done it, and I get to say I've done it. And then when life gets tough, which inevitably does, I have something hard that I've already done to look back at and say, I'm that guy.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I I stand up in front of a high school of teenage boys and tell them not to wank. And to have the confidence to do that has taken me having to conquer myself for a while and having to look in the mirror and say, you're that guy.
Yeah.
So the reason why I don't masturbate anymore, why I don't watch any porn anymore, is because I wouldn't be able to stand up on stage. That's a massive motivating factor to me.
But you have to look yourself in the mirror in the morning.
And imagine the confidence that you lose when you've sold this game that you can't keep, right? Yeah. And so it's turned around now. There's no going back for me.
Yes.
And it has been half a decade since I've watched porn, since I've searched up porn. But now there's no chance, right? I wouldn't be able to stand up on stage confidently and deliver the message, and believe it myself. Yes. So I think tough times are coming. Life is hard anyway, and that if you can find voluntary stress, it levels you up in terms of your capacity for dealing with that. I mean, there was a peer-reviewed study that's come out of Australia. Rogan actually mentioned on his podcast recently that exercise is more effective than counseling and medication for anxiety and depression. Yes. And so I work with guys that have anxiety, and I grew up with insane anxiety. I was not the confident kid. I was a strange-looking little boy who didn't like the way he looked, who was super anxious. I went to hospital with anxiety attacks at 12. Yeah. Right? I was not a strong man. I had a strong father, and I got to watch a strong father be a strong man. My father can carry stress like you can't imagine. And so I've been able to build that over time, and it's come through physical activity. Physical activity has been the building block of my stress tolerance. Yes. And I think that the more stress that you can handle, the higher your stress tolerance, the higher you'll rise up in life. And so I think it's a very important thing to be able to do, is to have these cookies in the cookie jar, so that when life gets tough and you become highly stressed, that you can look back and say, I'm that guy and I can handle this. Yes. And I think physical activity is an amazing way to do that.
Well, I mean, and that's the one thing through the whole of, so I'll just repeat another Rogan thing, like the whole thing through COVID, not once did anyone get up, on that White House press secretary, that Stecky that kept on going up and we'll circle back. Never once did she say, okay, cool, let's circle back, let's run, let's actually go and run or do some push-ups or eat properly. Or it was just this okay, cool, medicine. And if you're doing the push-ups and the squats and all of that, it's you can get there.
I think if we go down that road, we're going to become a conspiracy podcast before.
For sure. I'm with you. What are they trying to do?
But I think there was intent behind that. Yeah. I think that we weren't trying to get people healthy. I think, in fact, if you were having people healthy, you wouldn't be having the results that you wanted. They didn't get the results that they really wanted. Yeah. So I think there was intent behind them saying that. And you're right. If they had come out and said, eat properly, do exercise, don't go into crowded spaces, maybe we would have had a different result. Yes. But they shut down the economies, crashed a whole bunch of people's businesses, put masks on people, and then said, oh, sorry, you have to take this. Oh, but it was your choice. So I think there's a lot of conspiracies you could get into that one, which I love, but time and place.
I'm like, every now and again my wife will be like, no, enough. I've heard this one before.
I am that guy, unfortunately.
Okay. You'd be over a beer. It's going to be fun.
There we go.
You mentioned earlier substance abuse. So we've spoken about some of the other addictive things. Substances, where do you stand on it? What's your message around it? Are you cool with weed, but as soon as it's a white powder, we're a no? Or are you sort of you said you've smoked weed, so you've been there. Yeah. What's your story there?
So I think the opening line to that has to be, substance is not intrinsically evil. It is just substance. Yeah. Substance is handled by subjects differently. And when you look at the net benefits or net cost of that substance, because the antibiotics we take have got consequence too. Yes. Right? If the cannabis is giving you a net benefit, which I personally don't think it can ever, then okay, smoke it. And I did, and I advocated for it for years. I was that guy that said this is way better than alcohol, this is fine. And then it became my escape from reality. Right. When I was failing out of varsity, instead of turning and facing and doing the work, I ran and hid in cannabis. And I would hang out with guys who are all high performers and crushing life. I was the bottom feeder. And I would sit there and play Fortnite and smoke my weed And they'd come home at night and smoke some weed too. And so I was with my boys chuffing.
Yes.
They were still getting it done. And you can still. But it's never going to take you from 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
None of the guys that I was stoning with at varsity are still stoners. Not one. We move because the consequence is too great. It never makes you better.
Yeah.
The problem with cannabis is that we now know that it ages your brain by 10 to 20 years. It increases your chance of psychosis from 4 to 8 times. I have 2 mates that I know personally that had psychosis, that developed psychosis from cannabis. Nothing else, from cannabis. And so, I look at alcohol, way more abrasive, but cannabis over time does just as much damage. Alcohol will drop your inhibitions though. And as a man, you need to be focused and disciplined and protect and provide. And if you're not dialed in that moment, you can die.
Yes.
Someone can harm your family.
Yes. Or
Or you can be hungover for 3 days and not get done what you need to get done. Right? So I think, a glass of wine with a steak, sure. Massive believer in getting lit at a wedding. It's a weird celebration. Jesus arrives, the first thing he does, they finish the wine.
Yeah.
He doesn't make one more bottle.
Yeah.
He makes more wine.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Are
you the guy that's on the roof of the marquee sliding down?
It has been. It has been. I'm not anti being that guy. It depends on the situation. Someone has to be.
Yeah.
So there is time and place for everything. There's context for everything, I think. And then you have things like nicotine, another great substance to talk about because all the guys are vaping now. Cigarettes, highly processed for the most part, and not great for you. Vapes, this Chinese secret syrup that the guys must be making a killing off of. The margins on it must be insane.
Well, if the government's taxing it the way they are, there's some money there. Yeah.
So that can't be good for you, right? And we've seen the evidence come out that it's not good for you. But nicotine in isolation is good for you.
Okay.
It's neuroprotective, and it's not one study that's saying this; it's multiple. Cigars are known to increase your testosterone. Right, so there are certain benefits we can take.
But is that not just because sitting there with a cigar, you look flippin' cool? It's just like, yes, Denny Crane.
So cigarettes and cigars increase testosterone, drop sperm count.
Okay.
So now you're suddenly seeing there might be some benefit to some of these things. And so once again, I'm not advocating for nicotine, but it does also enhance your productivity. So the internet money guys love nic pouches, love Nicorette spray. There's chewing gum. It's called. There's different brands, but they also, you get some nicotine and get dialed in. Could you get addicted to it? Sure. Is addiction ever good? No. We never want a crutch. We never want something that's holding us up in life. Yeah. We want to be sovereign, which means we have to be able to stand alone of any substance. Yeah. So that's important to be able to navigate. But once again, and I said this earlier, I will openly be the guy smoking a cigar.
Yes. Because
I can't not be authentic, and I don't believe that a cigar at a handful of times a year is going to be a net negative for me.
Yes.
I'm in a celebratory spirit. I'm going to puff on a cigar. Yeah. I think it's a pure tobacco leaf. It's not processed like cigarettes are. I'm puffing it into my mouth. Sure, there's still risk to that, but I'm enjoying it. It's a moment of celebration. It's a very introspective, very calm, very collected. I mean, a cigar burns for 45 minutes, right? Sure. And so it's a slow puff with your boys while you're chatting, while you're celebrating, as opposed to the junkie hit of like a, right? And I've been there. Yeah. I've been the box today guy, and I've fought with that addiction, and I struggled for many years. So I'm very aware that there is this potential for addiction, right? But I have to look at the substance in isolation. I can't say, oh, it did this damage to him. Although when they're generalities, when I see 5 guys fall to the same substance, maybe I shouldn't be the 6th.
Yes.
Okay? But I can't say, oh, he can handle it, therefore I should be able to, or he couldn't handle it, therefore I won't be able to. I have to look in isolation what that product's going to do to me.
Yes.
Right? And unfortunately, some of them there are no benefits to. Porn, for example, not one benefit. 0. I had one girl who's a psychologist of some kind say to me, no, she thinks there's benefit to it because pedophiles can use it to sate their desire for children. And I thought there are other ways that we can sate their desire, and we can use lead poisoning. And so I don't think there's any benefit. I don't think we can argue that there's any reason to be watching something like porn. Never ever. It only ever makes you worse off. Yeah. And I've been at the bottom of that barrel too. So I'm speaking from experience.
It always spirals. It doesn't, like, I've never met someone who is like, okay, I watch a bit of porn, but it's just that. No, they start there, then 2 months later it's something different, then it's something different, then it's something different. Yeah. And and it seems to just
so it's the
spiral
same
down.
process as any other hard drug. You need more and more, scientifically on a chemical level, you need more and more to get the same hit.
Yes.
Okay. Now what we're doing is something called violation arousal. So the idea that it is a little bit too hectic for me is what gets me stimulated.
Okay. Yeah.
Right? And so I need more and more hardcore porn to get the same rush, to get the same feeling of hit. Yeah. So we go from boy on girl to girl on girl to boy girl to stimulated rape, whatever else it is, to boy on boy. Suddenly maybe that's triggering you. Right. Is there perhaps a link there in that desire and that urge? I'm not saying there is, but there's a question there.
Sure.
We can draw a bit of a line there. And so I think it is a hard drug. You need more and more to get the same hit, and it is a spiral.
And that's the same with other drugs, cocaine,
sure.
or whatever,
100%.
weed,
sugar.
You now have to smoke. It's more and more and more and more.
Sugar's my biggest addiction.
Dude.
It hits me, and I openly say that's in the next 100 Club challenge. I'm doing sugar, and I can already feel the headache. Whew, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
Right? And that's a massive one for me. I have to accept it. That and scrolling social media. My two biggest hits, and I'm very openly struggling with them. And hopefully I'll hit them. But yeah, those are dangerous too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I justify the TikTok habits. I mean, that's how I found you. So like, of course I can scroll TikTok for 2 hours because look, I'm finding guys for the podcast. This is legitimate work. No, it's not. It's
or at least your cost reward
yes.
probably isn't effective. I mean, I don't listen to any mainstream news sources. I'll go on Twitter and get the actual video from 7 different angles and then actually know what's going on. Or get 7 different opinions on the same event and then actually know what's going on.
Yeah,
so social media, so someone on social media, I can actually use it for information gathering. There's benefit to it, which makes it that much more dangerous.
Yes.
Because then you can't justify it.
Oh yeah.
Right. And so it's a very hard one to try and kick as well. I put a timer limit on. And once the first hour was done, then every 15 minutes it gives me that reminder.
Right.
So there are ways to try and navigate.
I think
it.
we use similar phones. You must show me that.
Sure. For sure.
You spoke about sugar, like. It's such an unassuming sort of drug almost. Because I mean, like for myself, so you look at me now and you'd never guess, and that's why I don't talk about it much at the moment. But intermittent fasting, getting off the sugar, that sort of dopamine cleanse kind of vibe. This is where I like to be. And 6-7 months ago, I was at 86 kilos at a much better space. Went through 7 months of just utter hell, had to full restarts, and the stress and the pressure, and you lose all of that motivation. But like sugar, the time when I was young, 24 or something like that, and I watched a documentary where they followed this obese lady around. I think it was a BBC thing, and they tracked what she like, bottle of Coke, 37 spoons of sugar. And they tracked absolutely everything she ate and like hit over 400 spoons of sugar in a day or something. It was mind-numbing. It might not have been that much, but I was like, I don't have that much. But I was saping a 2-liter Coke a day in my my corporate job at it. Like the fridge was just down the way, and I would drink a whole Coke and this. I did it one day, and I was like, whoa, hold on. When I hit 30 spoons of sugar in one day, I was like, whoa. And then it stopped dead. I mean, I had like what felt like ants running through my legs. Couldn't sleep. Like it was a full-on detox. And it people don't talk about it. You're like, sugar is like, your bread's got sugar. I mean, how's your bread got sugar in? Yeah. It's a scary, like a very, for me at least, sugar is
it's as real as any other drug, and there's as much damage as anything else. It has its own consequences.
Yeah.
But big corporate makes big money. And so why would we try and stop it?
Yes.
Right? Why would we say anything else?
Yeah.
And so the guys blamed saturated fats on animal proteins and made it go away. And no one ever asked any questions again. But guys are starting to ask the questions now. I think we're seeing a massive overhaul in things like our diet. Yeah. And so I'm interested to see what happens in terms of, I mean, intermittent fasting also growing in popularity, right? And super effective for cutting your calories in the day.
Oh yeah.
And I'm a big believer in that too. I mean, even fasting is growing in popularity. Doing water fasts is becoming more and more common.
I mean, just the effects of autophagy on yourself and fixing cancer and all that.
Yeah. And having a release of human growth hormone. There's a whole bunch of benefits to all of those old school of thought methods of health. Yeah. And that we are starting to trend back towards.
Yeah.
With the whole self-improvement movement that's happening, stopping porn is just the first step. Then the guys get dialed in and we do everything else. Intermittent fasting is one of the things we talk about. Changing your diet is a big part of the Bustarut program, right? What we're actually trying to do is overhaul our identity to such a degree that the issue that we had, the addiction that we're trying to stop, is no longer a problem.
Yes.
And so we have a whole bunch of these lifestyle angles, and the young guys are getting on it. They're not just stopping the porn or stopping the vaping. They're getting into the gym every day. They're doing 100 push-ups every day. They're reading these new books, taking in a new world view, waking up early, setting their minds for the day. There's a whole bunch of stuff going into these developments, and the guys are keen. So I'm interested to see what society does in the next 5 to 10 years, because these young men are going to be the pillars of that society, right? They're going to set the tone for that society. So I think we may have a strong swing back. I think societally, the pendulum has gone very liberal and is now coming back the other way. I see a massive anti-liberal movement in young men around the country already.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the cool kids are based.
Right.
Super based.
Yeah.
Christian, dialed in, focused, anti the rainbow kids, very sharp and hard and fast, which I like. So I'm interested to see what happens in the next 5 to 10 years.
I mean, two of my mentees, young guys that I've mentored years back, both those guys also good Christian boys, but still they'll party or whatever else. But the one was head boy of his high school, and we looked and we were like, yo, and then they're going to get jobs and they're doing this and they're actually impacting their circles and they're exercising and they're doing all of this kind of stuff. And just that little bit of focus, the guys that surrounded them, they chilling, working some dead-end job, miserable with themselves, dreaming that they could be Gary Vee, going, oh, that guy stole my idea, or whatever it is. But you check these guys, I mean, getting that focus, getting that drive, that push. It's
I think
nice to see.
That's where the culture shift is going to come. Is that the guys that are going to do it are going to start to lap the guys that don't.
Yes.
Their headspace is just going to be there. They're going to be ready for the opportunity that comes along.
Yes.
Right. Success is when opportunity meets chance. I think that's that saying. Anyway,
like
so the opportunity comes along and you're ready and dialed in for it. So you can hit it. And the other guy's just not ready. And so he starts to see the guys that were ready, lapping them and wondering why, and then they realize what it is, and then they do the same thing. Culture moves like a wave. And so I think we are going to see, it get to 70% of the guys. There's always going to be your one or two guys that were never going to make it, that were never going to show up. But I think there's going to be more and more guys that are ready and trying and working for it.
I want to take a moment quickly before we carry on. I want to say just a thank you to Moment. Their logo up here in the back. They've sponsored the space for us and look after us so well to let us use the space as KIF, awesome space. And then their initiative, Suncash, which is a solar kind of vibe where they provide solar to people and sell electricity to less than Eskom, which is quite cool. And then you can invest, so we were talking about it earlier, where you can actually buy a solar cell for $85 and you get 12% return.
That's massive.
You put your money in the bank, you're not getting 12%.
That's huge.
Okay. And the links will be on the video and whatever else. And I think it's a fair thing to mention them, because this costs money and time and effort, and there's electricity and an inverter to make sure load shedding doesn't kill us. The Moment guys and Suncash guys, thank you very much. So we've gone through porn, we've gone through masturbation, we've gone through some drugs, we've gone through the exercise thing, and I want to go back to that a little bit. Where, for me, I go and do 15 push-ups now, tomorrow I'm sore, I don't want to do it again. How are you motivating guys to get, is a point of just okay guys, park run, hit that 5K with your chommies, go and do it. Yes, you saw it tomorrow, do it again on Monday. Or are you more structured? How are you advising guys to get into
So what we do is we raise vantage on the problem. So before I even tell them they need to change their lives and what they have to do, I tell them that they have a problem. And once we've raised their vantage and enhanced their perspicacity, and suddenly they've clicked into the fact that they're losers and they need to change, because because there has to be a pain point before we actually ever move.
Without pain, no change.
There we go. Then we start to say, okay, so then what do we have to do? And what we do is identity overhaul. There are two very effective ways to cut addiction and to level up. The first being an environmental change. And we see that happening with the American Marines that went to Vietnam. A whole load of them got hooked on heroin.
Yes.
American government thinks these guys are going to come back. It's going to be an epidemic. What are we going to do? And yet the guys come back, and the vast majority, I think it's like 8 out of 10 guys that were hooked, never go for it again.
Sure.
And heroin has a high relapse rate. It's like 90% of guys that try to stop heroin go back to it again.
Sure.
And yet these guys never did. And what had happened? They had gone from a war-torn environment to their families. Right, so environmental change is massive. Unfortunately, most guys can't just get up and leave. Right, we've got responsibilities. Sure. So the next best thing that we can do is overhaul our identity to such a degree that we're no longer the same person dealing with the same problem from the same perspective. And so the best way to do that is shock and awe.
Yes.
It is packing the wagon, changing absolutely everything within the span of a couple of days, and holding on for dear life to everything that you have to do. You put those boxes up and you tick them every single day as much as you hate it. And when something falls off, we put it back on and we go again. Now, that may look different for everybody.
Yes.
If you can't run, we walk. If you
Yes.
can't walk, we crawl. We do what we can to get where we need to go. Now, every guy that I work with needs to do 100 push-ups a day.
Okay.
If you work with me on any of the groups, all the WhatsApp groups, all the private communities, the guys are doing 100 push-ups a day. Not because it's exercise. It is, but it doesn't count as their physical exercise for the day. They have to do 100 push-ups and physical exercise.
Right.
The 100 push-ups is voluntary discomfort. I don't want to do 100 push-ups every day. Yeah. It sucks. Last night I was lying in bed, my lights were off, and I realized I hadn't reported to the group that I had done my 100. So I got out of bed and I reported.
Yes.
And so we change a whole bunch of things. We wake up at 5 in the morning. Why? Because it sucks.
Yes.
It's voluntary discomfort. It adds more time to my day. I have time to now set my mind for the day. And so we get to incorporate a whole bunch of mindset building tools that I think are incredibly important. And to go into our day with momentum, having already stacked wins, having already done the work to set our minds in the direction that we actually want to go, having done our 100 push-ups already. And so when we get kicked in the shin by some guy, we don't react from the space of someone that's unprepared. We react from the mindset of someone who knows where they're going, right? If I've been declaring over myself that morning that I am that I have a spirit of love, of power, and of self-control, and I believe it to my core because I've been saying it for 3 years every single morning at the end of my prayer, right? Then when the girl says, hey, do you want to have a go? Or I have the urge to whip up my phone and whack off, I process that through the lens, right? Through the perspective of someone who believes to the depth of his core that he has a spirit of self-control. And so I go into my day ready, dialed in, focused, with momentum, and with direction. The first thing that we do with guys is we set up what we call a future vision. We ask 9 questions, and these questions represent, or they are about different aspects of your life. And then we build out a vision board of those answers. And so every morning the guys are getting up in between your sets of push-ups, you're looking at your board, you're saying, that's who I want to be 2 to 3 years from now.
Yes.
And I know it works because it worked for me.
It works.
I wasn't a speaker 2 to 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But I had it on my vision board.
Yeah.
It was real and tangible and valuable enough to get me out of bed in the morning. The picture next to that is the dude from Never Back Down and a Belgian Malinois in my gun, and it represented a question 2, what are you highly specialized in? And for me it was, I am effective in combat.
Yes.
My vision was me with my Belgian Malinois running into clear kill house on a shooting range, training together, right? And so every morning for the last 3 years, I wake up at 5 to go to CrossFit so that I can survive the jiu-jitsu fight, so that I can retain my pistol when I go and do combative pistol shooting.
Right.
And so every morning I'm doing dry firing drills. And my girlfriend at the time says, what are you doing? That looks so weird. But Birch was hitting his dry fire drills, which came into into fruit when I was attacked by 3 guys in Feb, and I could handle the fight, draw my pistol without having to think about it, and defend myself.
Yes.
Right? And suddenly that vision board comes into fruition. And suddenly the speaker comes into fruition because I've been focusing on it every morning before I start my day. Why am I getting up at 5? I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
Why am I doing the work? Because I want to be that guy.
So the repetition works.
But having direction.
Yes.
Having a map of where we want to go, because otherwise we end up being reactive to life. We end up being grass blown back and forth to the wind by chance.
Yeah. Well, if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything.
There we go. But if you can be dialed in and say, that's where I'm going,
yes,
eventually we can get there.
Yeah. I suppose you're now seeing this is my vision when that chick or that drug or that TV show or that whatever, sweet or sugar or whatever distracts you. But but
you know where you're going. You've got a target. Yeah, target acquired. We're dialing it.
Yeah,
is what it is. And so that's massive. And then we go on to exercise every single day, because there's massive benefit to exercising. Whether it is your psychological benefit, right? We have a whole bunch of hormones that get released. We feel great. We feel confident. We're getting it done. Whether it is the confidence that comes from you being jacked.
Yes.
Whether it is the fact that you have a responsibility as a man to be able to protect your wife and children.
Yes.
To carry her out the building burning. It's not just a case of I should be fit to look great. There's some benefit to looking great,
sure, but
the effectiveness that comes with the capacity to do what you need to do is massive as well. So the guy's identity changed just by working out. And so I'm a big believer in that exercise. And then we read books, right? I become like who I spend time with, but I can't spend time with Goggins.
Yes.
What I can do is read his book, absorb his worldview, filter out what's good for me, and apply it. Right? And so we prescribe books that guys have to read if they're doing the 100 Club Challenge. Right? And so the guys end their days off getting dialed in again, reading the right books.
Yeah. And
then we go again.
Yeah. Well, they say readers are leaders.
There we go.
Thank you. I'm spitting out catchphrases today. Going on.
I mean, Luke Ballmer puts it very nicely. He says, the smartest people in the world have written down their best ideas. Why aren't you reading? Right? There's definitely benefit to that.
Yeah. Well, I look at so I follow, in the past cities, I followed a lot of Gary Vee and a lot of those kind of guys, and they give away a lot of their stuff. So I use that in business, I use it in life, I use it whatever, and it's all there.
Yeah.
It's a simple, YouTube, but it's a simple video or two away to get there. Your 100 Club, whatever else, how are you working? Are you charging youngsters? Is it free? Is it a do they have to apply? How does it work? Like if we've got 17-year-old Frikkie who's watching this podcast and going, your channel, I want to do this.
Yeah.
How does he do it?
17-year-old Frikkie is going to find his two mates. They're going to make a WhatsApp group. They're going to hold each other accountable. They're going to reach out for the material, which they get for free. They're going to watch the content to know what to do, and they're going to get on it themselves.
Where do they reach out to?
They can find me on social media, Bustarut.today. They can find me at Drew_Birch, and they can drop me a DM. Everything's for free. The purpose of the local mission in South African schools and with South African men is to get them leveled up and dialed in. I'm not making any money off of any of my talks, at least not at this stage. I make my cash with one-on-one work with clientele that is in the UK and the USA.
Okay. And
so that's where I fund myself. That's what keeps the dream alive. But the local mission, what people are seeing, the talk people are seeing, that's not for profit. That's for impact, and that's for purpose, and that's for legacy.
Fantastic.
Which I think means more and carries more. If I can get one guy to click, to wake up, he gets his 3 friends to do it.
Yeah.
And then we have a culture change. I want a culture change.
Yeah.
I want to raise an army.
Yes.
And that's stage 2.
Yeah.
But first we need the guys to be dialed in, to know what's up, to get focused and effective, to make their cash. Then we can worry about becoming fighters.
That's fantastic. You spoke about jiu-jitsu. What level you at? What belt you have?
So I fought for a couple of years at varsity. I had stopped rowing and I was looking for something as competitive. And so I picked up mixed martial arts as a whole. And so didn't grade much there, and then was out of it for a couple of years. Started again about 2 years ago and was back in for about a year, and then snapped my ATF the week before competition this year, March. So got jumped by those 3 guys. Yes. Broke up with a girl that I hadn't engaged in for, hadn't proposed yet.
Sure.
Was in a car accident, and then snapped my ATF in the space of about 4 weeks.
Oh.
And what was amazing about that situation was that the old me would have crumbled under the pressure. I would have been a pot-smoking, masturbating monkey by the end of that month. And the new me that I had built over time could absorb that pressure and keep moving and keep thriving. And that was because of the guy that I had built up, right? So I really do enjoy jiu-jitsu. It's great. I was back in it this morning. Met up with one of the 100 Club guys at his club. Had a roll in with him. Shout out James. Was great. Was good fun. So a big believer in that. It's an awesome skill to have. It's chess with your body.
Right. Okay.
Someone's trying to kill you. You can't breathe. You're the most tired you've ever been in your whole life, and he's trying to kill you.
Yeah.
You have to try and work out how you're going to escape.
Yeah.
Great for stress tolerance, right? Great skill to build. Great for fitness.
Yeah.
Highly recommend to anybody. And there's a reason why all the top masculine thought influencers are into it.
Yeah.
There's something to be said about it. I think there's a lot to be said for your stand-up game as well. Being able to box is fantastic. You never want to go to ground in a street fight, right? Someone's going to curb stomp you. But if you can throw a good punch, that'll help you as well.
Yeah.
I think that those are skills that every guy needs. I also think every guy in this country needs to have a pistol. Why don't you have a gun? If you don't have a gun yet, why not?
Yeah.
There's no reason not to. And I think we need to be able to back ourselves.
Yeah.
We first need to be able to not be pot-smoking monkeys.
Yes.
But once that's dialed in, we need to be able to start leveling up. And the next level is personal protection. We've outsourced our capacity to protect ourselves to some service that we know is inept.
It's odd because so I went to Oz beginning of the year, and I remember walking through Melbourne. I'm like, there's no barbed wire. There's no, security force driving down the road. I mean, you see the odd cop, but whatever, and we're like super security focused.
But the flip side of that coin is what happened to them when lockdowns happened.
Yes.
Because they were tased and gassed and beaten.
True.
For standard protests. Because you had a government that has that much power, has that much authoritarian overreach.
Yeah.
South Africa, you have a government that's inept, and so we get away with a lot.
Yes.
But I was surfing in lockdown.
Yeah. You're one of those hoax.
Right?
They did it to Musenberg.
Because we can get away with that much more. And so if the cost to that is that I have to be able to back myself and I have to be more sovereign, I'll be more independent, I'll be more sovereign, I'll pay that cost.
Yes.
To not have Big Brother driving down on me over a protest, over lockdowns that will be back at some stage. I'll take the South African equivalent. The grass isn't that much greener anywhere else. Yeah. And the cost to pay is that you either have a very strong government that wants to get stronger, or you have to be able to back yourself more. And I would go for backing yourself more every time.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Drew, Shot, so much for coming through. I know where are you from? You travelled from somewhere.
So
I was guessing East London.
No, I'm actually originally a dairy farmer. I was a farm boy. Grew up outside Jeffreys Bay. Right. And then moved to St. Francis at quite a young age. So I'm a hunter surfer. I'm a bit of a mutt.
All right.
Spent some time doing anti-poaching up in Africa before I eventually got my articles done. Was then an accountant. Yes. And now we're a coach and a motivational speaker. And hopefully going to change some lives along the way. It's been a bit of a journey.
Yeah. Fantastic. Dude, thank you so much for coming on. You embody the idea of grow a pair. So
thanks,
and it's so great just to chat with you, get your story. Check out Drew Birch, Bustarut.today, right?
Yep.
Fantastic.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate what you're doing and looking forward to see the impact that you have.
I hope so, dude. It's something hopefully will work. Yeah.
Let's go.
Fantastic. Cheers, everyone.
Hey.
Nice. Shot so much, man.
Well done. That was good.
That was great. That was great.
Now let's see if